Get ready, because today's story will touch your heart. But first, subscribe to the channel and leave a like to support more exciting stories like this one.
The snow fell heavily that December night when Daniel Ferreira parked his black Mercedes in front of the most expensive condominium in the city. At 38 years old, he had everything: a technology company valued in the millions, a penthouse apartment, and an engagement ring in the pocket of his coat. He was eager to announce his marriage to Isabella Montclair, the woman who had introduced him to high society circles. But as he approached the entrance, something made him stop. Sitting on the icy sidewalk, leaning against the cold wall of the building, there was a black woman with gray hair. She wore a thin, torn coat and held a worn plastic bag. Daniel felt his heart tighten even before fully recognizing her. Dona Teresa, the woman who raised him. The maid who worked in his grandmother's house for more than 20 years. The person who made his food, took care of his wounds, and hugged him when his biological mother abandoned him as a baby. She wasn't just an employee. She was the only mother he had ever truly known. Daniel froze. It had been 4 years since he had seen her. 4 years since he changed his phone number and cut all ties with his humble past. For years pretending he never had a poor childhood, that he never lived in a simple neighborhood. When Isabella came into his life, she made it clear: successful people don't carry baggage from the past. And Dona Teresa was exactly that to him now. Baggage. He swallowed hard and stepped forward. His voice came out shaky and uncertain. Dona Teresa? The woman slowly lifted her eyes. When she recognized him, her face lit up for a brief second, but soon her expression changed. There was pain there. Deep hurt. Disappointment. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice hoarse from the cold. "What are you doing here?" he asked, already knowing the answer would hurt. Dona Teresa tried to smile, but it was a broken smile. "I came to look for you, my son. I called so much, sent so many letters, but you never answered." Daniel felt the guilt rise up his throat like bitter, heavy bile. He knew about the calls. He knew about the letters. But he always let Isabella discard them, always let her convince him that it was weakness, unnecessary attachment to a past that no longer mattered. "You can't stay here," he said, looking around, afraid that someone might see them. "I know." She lowered her head. "I just wanted to see you one last time. Your cousin told me you live here now. I tried to go in, but the doorman, he treated me like I was trash. Said people like me don't get into places like this." Daniel closed his eyes. The shame was physical, it hurt in his chest. At that moment, the building's revolving door opened and Isabella appeared, stunning in a red dress, sky-high heels, and a fur coat. She stopped when she saw the scene, her blue eyes narrowing. "Daniel? What's going on here?" He opened his mouth to answer, but couldn't. Isabella looked at Dona Teresa with obvious disgust. "Is this woman bothering you? I'll call security." "No." Daniel finally reacted. She raised me." The silence that followed was heavy as lead. Isabella took a step back, processing the information. Then her face turned into a mask of coldness. "This is the maid you hid from me?" Daniel didn't answer. Dona Teresa tried to stand up, but she was too weak. He instinctively bent down to help her, but Isabella grabbed his arm. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "Are you going to bring this woman inside? On the night we're going to announce our engagement? In front of all our guests?" Daniel looked at Dona Teresa, then at Isabella. Something inside him began to crack. For 4 years he had built a life based on lies. And now, seeing the woman who loved him unconditionally sitting on the frozen ground, he finally understood the real price of his choices. "Yes," he said, his voice firm for the first time in years. "I'm going to bring her inside." Isabella let go of his arm forcefully. "If you do that, it's over. The engagement, the contracts my father promised you, everything. You're going to choose between her and your future." Daniel looked into the eyes of the woman who raised him. He saw silent tears running down her wrinkled face. He saw love. He saw forgiveness in advance. And finally, after so long, he chose right. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Leave in the comments what you thought and which city or country you're watching from. Now let's see how this decision is going to change everything. Daniel helped Dona Teresa to her feet and hugged her. Her body was cold, trembling, Far too fragile. He felt the weight of 4 years of abandonment in that embrace. Isabella watched everything with an expression of contempt. "You're going to throw everything away because of an old maid?" she asked, her voice cutting. Daniel didn't answer. He simply guided Donna Teresa inside the building. Isabella stood on the sidewalk for a few seconds, incredulous, before walking in after them. In the elevator, the silence was suffocating. Donna Teresa kept her head down. Daniel held her hand tightly. Isabella typed on her phone, probably warning someone about the disaster. When they reached the apartment, Daniel took Donna Teresa to the guest room. He grabbed blankets, prepared a hot bath, and brought comfortable clothes. While she recovered, he stayed in the living room, his hands trembling. Isabella appeared in the doorway, her arms crossed. "The guests will arrive in an hour. My father, my partners, important investors. And you want me to explain that you brought a beggar into the house?" "She's not a beggar," Daniel replied, his voice low but firm. "She raised me. She's my family." "Family?" Isabella laughed, a bitter sound. "You spent years saying you grew up alone. You lied to me about everything." Daniel finally looked at her. "I lied to myself too." His phone started ringing. It was Enrique Campos, his partner. Daniel answered. "Daniel, what's going on?" "Isabella said you canceled dinner." "I didn't cancel. I just need to handle something first." "Handle what?" "Half the investors are coming because of Isabella's father. If you mess this up." Daniel hung up. Donna Teresa came out of the room an hour later, clean but still fragile. She sat on the couch, her hands resting on her lap. "I'm sorry, my son. I didn't want to get in the way of your life." "You're not getting in the way of anything. Tell me what happened. Why were you on the street?" Donna Teresa sighed. "After you disappeared, I kept working. But I got sick. Heart problems. I spent everything on doctors. I lost my job because I couldn't do heavy work anymore. I tried to look for you, but your phone didn't work, your social media had disappeared. It was like you had erased everything." The guilt pierced Daniel like a knife. "I really did erase it," he admitted, his voice breaking. "I wanted to erase everything that reminded me where I came from. I thought that to be important, I had to forget who I was." "And did you forget?" Daniel looked at her hands, marked by decades of work. "No. I just pretended." Isabella appeared again, now holding a glass of wine. "What a touching moment," she said with sarcasm. "But let's be practical, Daniel. You have two options, either send this woman away and save your career, or stay with her and lose everything. Investors won't trust someone who has that kind of background." Daniel stood up. "What kind of background, Isabella?" "Humble, honest, real, poor," she replied without hesitation. "In our world, that matters. You know that. Then maybe I don't want to be part of your world anymore." The phone rang again. This time it was Enrique again, but when Daniel was about to hang up, he noticed something strange. The screen showed a previous notification he hadn't seen, a voice message from Donna Teresa from 3 months ago. But he was sure he had blocked her number more than a year ago. Something wasn't right. Daniel opened the phone settings and saw that there was a parental control app installed. An app he had never downloaded. With full access to his messages, calls, and contacts. "Isabella," he said slowly, turning to her. "Did you mess with my phone?" She took a sip of wine, showing no guilt. "I protected you from unnecessary distractions. That woman called every week, sent pathetic messages. I just filtered out what wasn't important." Daniel felt his blood run cold. "You blocked Donna Teresa's messages? For how long?" "Since we started dating. 2 years, more or less. 2 years. 2 years of deleted messages. 2 years of blocked calls. 2 years in which Donna Teresa thought he simply didn't care." "You had no right," he said, his voice trembling with anger. "I did. As your future wife, it was my role to protect you from people who wanted to take advantage of your success." Donna Teresa stood up, tears in her eyes. "I never wanted anything from your money, Daniel. I just wanted to know if you were okay." Daniel looked at Isabella. Really looked. And for the first time he saw who she truly was. Not the sophisticated woman who had seduced him, but someone cold, calculating, capable of separating a son from the only mother he had ever known just to maintain control. And he wondered, what else was she hiding? Daniel didn't sleep that night. While Isabella left furious and Donna Teresa rested, he stayed awake thinking. If Isabella blocked messages for 2 years, what else had she done? What else had she hidden? He grabbed his laptop and began to investigate. He checked bank statements, emails, company contracts. At first, everything seemed normal. But then he noticed something strange: small transfers from the corporate account to an unknown company. Low amounts, always below the limit that required his approval. They were monthly deposits to a firm called Estrella Daurada Consultoria. Daniel had never heard of it. He opened the registry and discovered that the company had been created 2 years ago. The partners? Isabella Montclair and Enrique Campos. His stomach churned. Enrique had been his best friend since college. He was the one who helped him start the company, the one who stood by him during crises. And now he had a secret company with Isabella? Daniel kept digging. He found more transfers, always disguised as consulting services. Altogether, they added up to nearly $500,000 over 2 years. Money from his company, being siphoned away. He needed more information. He picked up his phone and called Laura, his accountant. Daniel? It's 3 a.m, she answered sleepily. Sorry, Laura. But I need you to check something. There's a company called Estrella Daurada Consultoria receiving payments from our account. Do you know anything about it? There was a silence. Laura? I thought you knew, she said nervously. Isabella told me it was approved by you. She showed an email with your signature authorizing the payments. Daniel closed his eyes. Forgery of documents. That was already a crime. Laura, I need you to send me all the records of those transactions. Everything. And don't tell anyone. He hung up and went back to the laptop. He needed to understand the purpose of that shell company. After more searching, he found something that made his blood run cold. Estrella Daurada Consultoria was registered as a supplier in public contracts. Contracts Daniel had never seen, never signed, but that carried his company's name. They were technology projects for small city halls, always overpriced. Money laundering. Isabella and Enrique were using his company to launder money. Daniel felt nauseous. Everything made sense now. Isabella hadn't approached him for love. She needed a clean company to use as a front. She needed someone naive. And he was the perfect idiot. Isolating him from Donna Teresa had been part of the plan. A person alone, without family, was easier to manipulate. Easier to control. He heard a sound in the hallway. Donna Teresa was at the door, wearing a robe. Are you okay, my son? Daniel tried to smile, but couldn't. I found out I've been an idiot, Donna Teresa. A complete idiot. She approached and placed her hand on his shoulder. We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do afterward. They used me. Isabella, Enrique, they're using my company for crimes. And I didn't notice anything. Donna Teresa sat beside him. And what are you going to do? Daniel looked at the documents on the screen. He had proof. He had names. But going to the police meant exposing his company. It meant admitting he had been fooled. It meant destroying everything he had built. I don't know. If I report them, my company will sink. They'll think I was involved. I'll lose everything. And if you don't report them? Then they continue. And I become an accomplice. Donna Teresa stayed silent, then said something that changed everything. You know, my son, when you were little and broke something, I always taught you that hiding it didn't fix anything. The only way out was to fix it, even if it hurt. You can't control what they did. But you can control who you're going to be. Daniel looked at her. At that simple woman, without formal education, but with more wisdom than all the executives he knew. She was right. He had a choice. He could protect his image and let criminals go free. Or do the right thing, even if it cost everything. But before going to the police, he needed more evidence. Solid proof that left no doubt about his innocence. Proof that protected not only him, but all the honest employees too. He picked up his phone and sent a message to Laura. I need you to arrange a meeting with Enrique tomorrow at 10. Say it's about expansion. Don't mention anything we talked about. The reply came quickly, done, Daniel looked at Dona Teresa with renewed determination. I'm going to do the right thing. But the right way, with intelligence and care. She smiled, and in that smile there was genuine and deep pride. For the first time in years, Daniel felt like he was on the right path. Not the path of superficial success, but the path of true dignity. And he finally understood that they were completely different things. Tomorrow he would face Enrique. Tomorrow he would begin to put the pieces together to expose the truth. Tomorrow would be the beginning of the end. Or the end of the beginning. The meeting was scheduled for 10 in the morning. Daniel arrived at the office an hour early, his heart pounding. He had spent the entire night preparing everything. Laura had sent all the documents. He had recordings, statements, fake contracts. He had everything. But one piece was still missing. He needed a confession. Daniel installed a small recorder under the meeting room table. He checked it 3 times to make sure it worked. Then he took a deep breath and waited. Enrique arrived right on time, smiling as always. That fake smile Daniel had never noticed before. He wore an expensive suit, a luxury watch, the confident air of someone who thought he was in control. "Good morning, partner," Enrique said, extending his hand. "Laura said you want to discuss expansion? Finally came to your senses after yesterday's scene?" Daniel shook his hand, feeling disgusted. "Sit down. We need to talk about a few things." Enrique settled into the chair. "First of all, I need to tell you Isabella is furious. She said you chose an old maid over your future. Honestly, Daniel, I don't understand you." "Really?" Daniel opened the laptop. "Maybe because you never really knew me. Or maybe because you were too busy stealing from me." Enrique's smile faltered. "What are you talking about?" "Estrella Daurada Consultoria. Does that company mean anything to you?" The silence grew thick. Enrique shifted in his seat, his body tensing. "I don't know what you're talking about." Daniel turned the laptop around, showing the screen. There were all the documents. Transfers. Contracts. Enrique and Isabella's names listed as partners. $500,000, Enrique. You siphoned $500,000 from my company in 2 years. Enrique looked at the documents, then at Daniel. His expression changed. The fake friend disappeared. In his place, something cold emerged. "And what do you intend to do? Go to the police?" He laughed bitterly. "You don't have the guts. Your company will sink. Your reputation will be destroyed. No one will want to do business with the idiot who got fooled." "Maybe," Daniel said calmly. "But at least I'll sleep in peace knowing I did the right thing." "The right thing?" Enrique leaned forward. "You want to know what the right thing is? The right thing was for you to stay in your place. You came from nothing. I gave you this opportunity. I introduced you to important people. I helped you build this company. And you owe me for that. I don't owe you anything. You used me. We all use everyone. That's the rule of the game." Isabella understood that. She saw you were perfect. Naive, desperate to be accepted, willing to do anything to erase your past. You were the ideal front. Daniel felt anger rising, but kept his voice controlled. "So it was all planned from the beginning? The relationship, the engagement, everything?" "Everything," Enrique confirmed. "Isabella chose you specifically. You had a clean company, a growing reputation, but came from a poor background. Perfect to manipulate. And that black maid? That was a bonus. Isolating you from her was easy. You were already ashamed of her anyway." The words hit like punches. Each one hurt because they were true. Daniel had been ashamed. He had distanced himself voluntarily. "Why?" Daniel asked. "Why do this to me? I trusted you. Because of money, Daniel. Money and power. And you were right there, ready to be used. It was too easy." Daniel closed the laptop. "Thanks for the confession." Enrique frowned. "Confession?" At that moment, the door opened. 2 police officers entered, followed by a prosecutor. Enrique jumped to his feet, his face turning pale. "What is this?" "An arrest," the prosecutor said, showing a document. "Enrique Campos, you are under arrest for fraud, document forgery, and money laundering. Everything you said was recorded and will be used against you." Enrique looked at Daniel with hatred. You idiot. You have no idea what you've done. Isabella has connections. Her father has power. They'll destroy you. Let them try, Daniel replied. I don't have anything left to lose. I already lost everything that mattered. Now I just want my dignity back. The officers handcuffed Enrique. He shouted, threatened, promised revenge. But Daniel didn't flinch. He simply watched as he was taken away. The prosecutor approached. We have a warrant for Isabella too. She's being arrested now. Your lawyers will need the documents you have. Take everything, Daniel said. I want them to pay for all of it. After everyone left, Daniel stayed alone. He sat in the chair, his hands trembling. It was done. Justice had been served. Enrique and Isabella would pay. But the victory tasted bitter. His company probably wouldn't survive. His reputation was stained. Everything was going to collapse. He picked up his phone and called Dona Teresa. It's done. Are you okay? Daniel thought about the question. Was he okay? No. He was shattered. But for the first time in years, he was at peace. I am. Finally, I am. 3 months had passed since that day. The scandal was huge. The newspapers wouldn't stop talking about the fraud, about the high society businesswoman and her accomplice who used a company to launder money. Isabella and Enrique were convicted. She got 8 years. He got 10. Daniel's company didn't survive. The contracts were cancelled. The investors ran away. Within weeks, everything he had built collapsed like a house of cards. But something strange happened. While his financial empire crumbled, Daniel felt a lightness he had never felt before. It was as if a gigantic weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He sold the penthouse apartment. Sold the Mercedes. Sold everything that represented that fake life. And with the money he had left, he did something surprising. He bought a simple house in a humble neighborhood. The same street where he grew up. The same street he had spent years trying to forget. Dona Teresa lived with him now. She had her own room, comfortable and warm. Daniel took care of her. He took her to the doctor, bought her medicine, kept her company. She still insisted on helping in the kitchen. It's what I know how to do, my son, she said with a smile. Let me take care of you too. Daniel got a job as a programmer at a small company. The salary was a fraction of what he used to earn. But it was honest. It was truly his. And when he came home and saw Dona Teresa waiting with dinner, he felt rich in a way he had never felt when he had millions. On a Saturday afternoon, they were sitting on the porch. Dona Teresa was knitting. Daniel was reading a book. Do you regret it? She asked suddenly. Daniel looked at her. Regret what? Losing everything. The money, the company, that whole life. He thought for a moment. He thought about the Mercedes, the luxurious apartment. He thought about Isabella in her designer dresses. He thought about Enrique and his fake friendships. No, he answered sincerely. I didn't lose everything. I lost things. But I got back something much more important. What? You. My dignity. My peace. I spent years accumulating things, but I was empty. Now I have less, but I am more. Dona Teresa smiled, that smile that warmed the heart. You were always special, Daniel. Since you were little. I always knew that one day you would find your way back. Back to where? To yourself. Daniel felt his eyes burn. He stood up and hugged her. A long hug, full of gratitude. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for never giving up on me. A mother never gives up on her child, she said. Not even when the child forgets he has a mother. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about everything that had happened. About all the choices. About everything he had lost and gained. He realized something fundamental. For years he chased success thinking success was money, status, recognition. But he was wrong. Success isn't what you accumulate. It's what you become. Isabella had everything and was empty. Enrique had power and was miserable. They had money, but they had no character. Dona Teresa never had anything. She worked her whole life as a maid. Lived in maids' quarters, wore old clothes, never traveled. But she was rich. Rich in love. Rich in values. And he finally understood, True wealth isn't in the bank. It's in the heart. He picked up a notebook and started writing. He wrote his story. Not to brag. Not to play the victim. But to warn others. So that other people wouldn't make the same mistakes. Months later, Daniel started giving talks in schools in poor neighborhoods. He told his story. Talked about his wrong choices. About how he almost lost the only person who truly loved him. Young people approached him after the talks. Young people who were starting to feel ashamed of their humble families. And Daniel said the same thing to all of them. Your roots are not your prison. They are your foundation. Don't be ashamed of where you came from. Be proud of who raised you with love. Because in the end, when you lose everything, the only thing left will be love. And if you threw love away, there will be nothing left. Donna Teresa was in the audience that day. She cried with pride. The boy she had raised, whom she had loved when no one else did, had finally come home. Not to the physical house, but to the home of the heart. Daniel looked at her and smiled tenderly. And in that smile there was gratitude, love, and redemption. He was no longer a rich CEO, but he was a complete man. And that was worth infinitely more. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Leave in the comments what you thought and which city or country you're watching from. And remember, success is not what you have, it's who you love.